The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Aves' record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands. And the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
Because the fight isn't over yet.
You will see me choose to protect my community by wearing a face cover.
And even with my face covered,
you will see me.
As a son.
As a man with a never quit attitude.
As a fighter for change.
Join me in wearing a face cover.
To help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
Because this is one small act of kindness
that has the power to make a big difference.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Your Earthblend Coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food?
Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp,
tofu, and rasta pasta?
Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock.
In downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock.
In downtown Atlanta.
For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992.
Or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com.
For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant.
Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
Follow the Black College Sports Network and all of our shows on YouTube. You can find us at MyJBN Online and on all social media at MyBCSN1.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Ready to go.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. As you see, Mike Washington is still out on assignment. As we get it done, we're gonna get into it. Let me jump right in here. Charles, it looks like you on the road, but you working with us.
Yeah, I'm on the road this weekend over here in Jackson, Mississippi currently, and I'll be over at Coach Prime, Deion Sanders camp on tomorrow. So we're going to be pregame show. Myself and Neely will be over there getting a few interviews covering these 300 young men who have descended on Jackson. They were in the airport today coming in for this Coach Prime camp here at Jackson State. So should be really nice tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I can't wait to hear more as you get to actually experience and talk about it. Check out the pregame show, because I'm sure y'all going to have some in-depth information on what that looks like, and then you can spin it back next week and tell us some in-depth stories of what's going on in that. With that, let's get it going. Welcome to episode 148 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From NAIA to the NCAA, we share insight and information on HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletics, aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. And that means all sports, like we did this past Tuesday. Hopefully you enjoyed our interview with North Carolina A&T head coach Dwayne, as he got it done in so many different ways in terms of the great athletes that he brought along with us as well. And I should say championship coach, as well as the championship individuals that showed out throughout the week. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live for KCRA Show 30 a.m. studio with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. We're also sponsored by BCSN in terms of what they do. Check it out. A lot of opportunities going on with BCSN. Make sure you check us out on our websites, BCSN app, if you would, excuse me. Download it, get all the information. If you're going to talk about bringing information, particularly to the African-American Black community, this is a place where you can get it done. So go and check out that information so you can see the latest and greatest and how you can get involved in various different ways. Guess what? Let me jump out here and talk about the SIAC issue statement regarding expected return to regular competition this fall 2021. The SIAC has been on it.com. They took a break in a lot of ways from the season. Saw that from the CIAA. But it looks like the SIAC is punching back through it. They've been dropping a lot of dives here and there. And while the SWAC has kind of come to the forefront in a lot of ways, and lately, obviously, a lot of the news has been rightfully so, North Carolina A&T, but SIAC has just been steadily marching, if you would. And they bring this statement. SIAC announced the return of regular season and championship competition beginning in the fall of 2021. The decision was based on the large measures of appreciable reduction across our league footprint with respect to new COVID-19 infections as well as the widespread availability of vaccine treatments. Makes sense in so many different ways. The last statement I'll bring you here is the return to competition by CDC is based on recommendations contained within the most recent NCAA publications related to the resocialization 2021 summer activities document, includes considerations specific to risk mitigation, which is relevant, part, impartial. Let me just go straight to you, Charles, with all them big words and all that being said. What are your thoughts in terms of SIAC? And to a bigger component of that, the rest of the HBCUs in terms of, in many ways, getting ready to get back to a competition standpoint for the fall of 2021?
Well, I think everybody is gearing up for the fall. There's a lot of excitement in the air. We talk about HBCU athletics with regards to SWAC. Everybody excited about the SWAC. But if you're fans of the SIAC, you've got to be excited to see your teams get back out there on the field. And they said in their statement, because of the mitigation process with regards to COVID, they feel comfortable enough to start getting back to competition. So it is a great thing to get an opportunity to see our SIAC brethren get back out there on the field. So you get your classics, you get your Morehouse Tuskegees, you get your Miles. It's time to get it back up, Dr. Cavil. We're looking forward to the fall.
Yeah, I think you make some good points. It looks like it's about here. And if that means that there's a football season, and for some, a men's and women's basketball season, that means homecoming.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts as you're gearing up and starting hearing all these dates with homecoming as the schedules have floated out for a while now? Everybody was excited about schedules coming out, particularly in the SWAC with this new formation of the league, what that looked like. You've seen things dropping out of the MEAC, dropping out in terms of North Carolina A&T, Tennessee State with the new coach on board, Hampton gearing up. What are your thoughts about this football season, including the CIAA, as you're getting back into the mix? What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, this is the fun part of the year where you start taking a look at the schedules and you start making your hotel reservations. Okay, I want to be at that one. I want to be at that one. I want to be here. Well, okay, all right. And so you start taking a look at the schedule, start taking a look at some of these matchups, and then you kind of take a look at some matchups that are become intriguing. I know today I was sitting around looking at Bethune-Cookman's. Their first home game is against Alabama A&M. So, they're jumping back into the fray in terms of competition, coming into this new conference. You get 2 FBS games off the top, and then Alabama A&M with Aquil Glass and the strike force that is Alabama A&M Bulldogs, that passing attack. They invade your home stadium. So that was an intriguing matchup. So you start to kind of, hone in a little bit, and kind of, hone in on some of these matchups as we go along. Of course, the Orange Blossom Classic, Jackson State, Florida A&M, that's going to be huge. But just a lot of games that you kind of start, tailoring your eyes on, like, that's going to be a good one. So that was one that kind of jumped out at me today.
I got another question for you, but I want to jump into some of our lab individuals out there. I like to call them just a part of the show in terms of how to do it. So I like to show them love. We got Chris Tucker, Virginia University in the house. That's CIAA territory. Aubrey Parkinson, good afternoon. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, man, one of the best voices out there commentating games. He does it like none other. I really appreciate his banter to really loosen it up in some ways. He has me chuckling all through the game. I'm like, man, what is he doing? I can't watch the game. Stephen A. Miller, the Columbus Classic in Ohio, had their first press conference today. Great weekend of events, Central State versus Kentucky State. Stephen, give me some more thoughts on that. I see you out there chugging in there. Great pub. Let me know what you thought on that. If you were able to get into some of the events or the press conference, let me know what your thoughts on the press conference were. And we'll get a chance. We'll have a football-heavy show today. And so we'll get a chance to wrap that up. I'll get Charles's thoughts in terms of the Columbus Classic, as they call it, between Kentucky State and Central State. Rivalry matchup with those two schools. So it'll be fascinating to see what others think about that. Reggie Watson, I should say. Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, indeed. Willie Alex Hine always bringing it. Good evening, everyone. CIAA in the house. CIAA is deep today. Reggie representing the CIAA. Karen Griffin talking about homecoming. She looked like she's fired up, ready to get to one. Lawrence D. White coming in from the Big D. Michael Ford, he said, don't forget the classes. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about some classes. We have to do a whole show on classics. You know you can't mix up homecomings and classics. That's two separate identity projects, and they're big. It'll take us a whole show just to get through all that. So you're right, Mike. We got to give some love to the classics. We'll get in that. Pre-game show is up here. Neely must be checking us out, being all fancy and stuff. I see you, Neely. I appreciate you breaking the internet with your comments. I won't let you ever forget that with new edition of Johnny Gill. That's one for the ages. That'll be a classic for many years to come. Jalen Riley, Chad Cooper, Chunk Hunt is always bringing us much love in terms of what's going on. Yeah, Christopher Darrell. That's Neely out there. Neely in the house, new edition style. Yes, indeed. He gonna come out there singing on y'all. Y'all better get ready. So,
you know what, Dr. Bill? Let me send a shout out to Hillman Frazier, Senator Hillman Frazier here in the state of Mississippi. So he's a huge fan of the show. And of course, Kate Johnson, she always comes in week out. I Lamb fanatics, man. Love them coming in.
Yes. Continue to shout them out throughout if I miss any of them, because it's not in terms of my intention, and certainly not because of my heart. Stephen jumped back in here. He said Kentucky State president guaranteed a thump in Central State. They had some good banter going back and forth. That's good. Yeah, he's a character over the president in terms of Kentucky State.
Kentucky State ain't shy. They called out Jackson State when Deion got hired. They want some more of Jackson State. They wouldn't showed out in the Circuit City Classic already. So they ain't shy about taking on any of these SWAC opponents. That's for sure.
Man, that's like me and the Smiley with my hand print on my face. No doubt about it. Good stuff. I want to ask this, and I want to ask the lab cohort out there in terms of this class today, as we matriculate and get ready for this big season. So, are you the type of person that likes to schedule some of your must-see games in coordination with homecomings? Are you the type that like to go to other homecomings, or you traditionally just your homecoming and then you tend to go watch particular matchups? Which side do you fall on? And that's not just for you. I want our lab fans out there, if you would allow me to use that framework. I want you all to chime in and tell me, are you the type that likes to set up your football schedule where you like to get in the mix and you find other homecoming games so you can travel and enjoy the culture of another homecoming in terms of yours when there's an open date in your schedule, if you would, or when your team is actually traveling to another homecoming? Is that a must-see event when you participate in it? Are you the type of individual that you like to go see certain matchups? Some of those include your teams, but on an off weekend, are you the type to travel around and be like, man, I want to see this matchup. My team's off. I'm going to that. Tell me which way did you go. Charles, you jump it off.
I have always been a matchup person. And I'll tell you how I started out that way. Basically, as a child, we were, huge Jackson State fans, but Alcorn, if old SWAC fans, if you remember, Alcorn and Grambling used to kick off the season. And that was a must-see matchup for me and my dad. We go with our neighbor who's a big Alcorn fan. And I tell you what, that was always fun to start off the electricity of the SWAC season with Alcorn versus Grambling. Playing in, if I'm not mistaken, there were some games that were in Shreveport. So I do remember that. But it was just always so much electricity with that game because it was jumping right into the thick with Alcorn and Grambling. And then we get into that Jackson State schedule, of course. Matchup for me was Jackson State, Tennessee State, things of that nature. But they were always, it was all this electricity with these great matchups in the first 2-3 weeks of the season. So I've always been a matchup person in terms of kind of taking a look at games other than Jackson State. As I've grown older, you visit other homecomings and things of that nature, but it's always the excitement of the first part of the season that you kind of get an opportunity to look around and see who has what.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you mine, but I'm gonna go to some of the lab junkies out there, if you would. JSU and Alabama A&M on October 9th. Hashtag homecoming, hashtag strike force. So it's like a homecoming, a vote for homecoming in there. Reggie says he likes to travel to other places for great football. So he chimes in with himself. Karen jumps in here, will travel for well-played football. She's a matchup person. I like this. Steven says, my Dukes used to take me around to all the classics and homecomings when I was a kid. Circle City Classic, Bayou Classic, Derby City Classic, Tennessee State Homecoming. So we got one for classics in terms of homecomings. I like that, no problem. Looks like we're even so far. TSU PVU homecoming must be there. Another homecoming, that's 3-2 in terms of which side of the ledger. Let's see, LaShawn Harris says, I attend homecoming every other year, SU Jags, but I also support other SWAC games, and I will kick off this year's in terms of the Orange Blossom Classic in Miami. No doubt, there's going to be a lot of folks kicking off the season there, I must believe. Ralph Cooper in here bringing this to us. I wonder what he thought it is. Is he a matchup guy or homecoming guy? With that being said, let me share. I've always sided with you on this, Charles. I'm a huge matchup guy. Other than seeing my home team play, because let's be real, for me, it's easy. It's local. I have season tickets. So that's the kind of top two that I would go to. I invest in that. So obviously I'm going to do that. But when those open dates go in there, or I even have some inkling when they're just huge matchups, the type of matchups that you think about, if we had those type of TV deals, they would be on TV. Those are that I like to go to when I'm allowed to have that freedom to make it. You know, I'm the type of person that will love history in terms of big time matchup, especially when you find out that they're going to mean something. First place is on the line. Divisional championship is on the line. A conference championship is on the line. And let me add this part of it, Charles. That's for whatever sport. The playing. It's not just football. I love it in terms of matchups, and that's why you all have me coming on here. I was in the news watching and daily in terms of what Prairie View's going to do over the last 2 weeks to see whether they were going to find a way to get a chance to get the Western Division crown. I saw Grambling falling in that space, and I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And I knew that last weekend it was going to be all up to Grambling and Pine Bluff. Prairie View did everything they could do, but I knew there was an outside chance that they could get a shot at the championship. Was I surprised that Grambling got swept by Pine Bluff? Totally. But I was ready to put it out there because I was like, I'll be doggone. It happened.
Right.
And so matchups mean everything to me. So it's interesting. I wanted to get back into some other discussion. The SIAC had some other news to go out. Do you want to jump on that and give us the framework, and then we can get in some discussion, if you would, what that looks like? But before we do that, let's do a tease. This is Dr. Cavil inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still out on assignment, getting it done. So you're listening to Charles and I break down. We're going to take this quick break, and we'll be right back with you after this break. And we'll get into the other SIAC news, and we'll do a little detour and go deeper in terms of understanding, if you would, the television breakdown and broadcast rights from that perspective. And hopefully we'll be able to shine some light on some things, maybe get some thoughts on people out there in terms of what they think about television rights. And therefore, with that, stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
This is Ryan Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
They be talking about Mike and Charles. They know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment, so it's just Charles and I trying to break it all down. Let me jump back in here before I go to you with that tease. The Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper said, matchup guy. I like it. I like it. I think we're back even. We have Dwight Moore says Alcorn versus JSU week 1. GSU mid-year. So he's a matchup. Got one for a matchup. What Dwight Moore sounds like. Fred Whitting is a homecoming. So we're back 4-4, man. We can't shake one way or the other. Rams homecoming is a must. And from there, I like to make the rounds for classic and homecomings. We got another homecoming person now. Mike Ford says, oh, man, this is unfortunate. I know how that feels. I really don't know how this feels. I've pretty much always been in the South. I lived in the South again. He said, if I lived in the South again, I should say, HBCU football and all day. But now I will have to travel this fall. Well, yep, get on your horse. This is a funny one. Homecoming. He said, Mama College ain't ready for G-Ho. Wait until they smell those fish sandwich aroma in the air. Yeah, they might lose just for that. They'll be out trying to figure it out. Can't concentrate on football. That's from none other than Lonnie Shaw, as you all imagine. Shout out to my 89er classmate, high school. He said, what's up? All right, Doc, no doubt. Good to see you, Curry Halliburton. Thanks for supporting us. Kay Johnson says, attended Morehouse in Spellman. Spellhouse homecoming every year. Absolutely fantastic experience. Back up on the homecoming side, 5-4. Matchup guy, 5-5. Man, I tell you, I love it. I love it. Lawrence D. White, homecoming, Dear Prairie View, 6-5. We'll see what they do. We'll keep it coming. Y'all keep it count, keep it coming. We're pretty much even. I think homecoming just took up the lead a little bit. It's pretty even.
I'm a football guy. So with homecomings, there's so much other stuff around the football game, which I understand. But, you know, I like to hone in on what's happening on the field. So I totally get it.
Yeah, I get it. You've been to a homecoming down in Prairie View with me. I got to get to a homecoming with you at Jackson State so you can show me around and show out for me a little bit. I promise I'm going to get on that train. But you've seen me. One thing that is tough for me at homecoming, after I got just that more attached to the football side of this, and really any sport, but obviously we're talking about the homecoming game in a sport. It's not the same homecoming Saturday night if the team doesn't win.
Sure.
For me. Now, some people, they can be like, hey, you know, it's a game. It is what it is. It's over. Shake it off. For me, my day, my evening changes. I can be having a great homecoming. You know, we go down there Wednesday, Thursday. So you really build up. So I've had all this success of seeing so many different people, getting excited about it. But it's something about that Saturday game. And if it doesn't quite go right, you know, the rest of my evening is tough. I might be able to rebound by midnight or so, but usually it's over. You know, the weekend was great, but it's just something if it doesn't go right.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Jackson State homecomings. They have taken on a completely different dynamic. And my partner, Neely, he was part of a group that really kind of turned up Jackson State homecomings around Thursday. So now Jackson State homecoming, there's this huge block party that leads into Friday before we even get to the Saturday game. So I want to shout out to my partner Neely because he's kind of a innovator, a history maker, if you will, with regards to Jackson State homecoming.
No doubt about it. I'm gonna do this. He says Lonnie Shaw remind me what GHO stands for. I think he's joking, but I'm gonna let Lonnie handle that. The greatest homecoming on earth for those that may not know what it is, because I know Dwight Moore is out there having fun and poking the big bear, if you would. In terms of SIAC, what other news is out there?
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the SIAC, and this was big news that came out today. The SIAC, also known as Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, they and ESPN announced today that they have reached a multi-year rights agreement that will feature the SIAC football and basketball games through 2027. Beginning in the fall of 2021, ESPN will feature 22 football games across ESPNU and ESPN Plus platforms, including the SIAC Football Championship. In addition, ESPN will have exclusive rights to all men's and women's basketball championship preliminary rounds on ESPN Plus, and the SIAC men's and women's basketball championships games will be on the ESPN network. So that's huge news today coming from the SIAC, and this is a quote from the SIAC Commissioner Greg Moore. We are very proud to both continue and broaden our media relationship with ESPN to provide the SIAC with the best and most meaningful opportunities to showcase our member institutions and student athletes on both ESPN networks and streaming platforms.
No doubt about it. I want to get into some of the media rights, but before I get in that, and don't let me belabor the point, Charles, and let's get in some dialogue about media rights. I think we touched on this one time before, but I want to take a little deeper dive in that. But the first thing after this, I got excited when you talked about this matchup. I think this big Division II, my understanding, there's not another Division II that has a deal such as this on such a huge, significant platform, ESPN. Obviously, we do our own thing, and so there's some things that may concern me about ESPN. But also, just to be upfront, there's some significant components about partnering with ESPN. It is the mega platform in terms of that. So that's significant. But one of the things besides that jumped out to me is the exclusive rights. I always get nervous when I hear these exclusive rights. But one of the things that I was able to dig up, consulting wise and jump in there and partnerships, is my understanding that this is a $1 million+ deal. That's significant. We just talked about a couple of weeks ago, for example, at the FCS level, that the Southland pays to be on ESPN Plus, right? That they have to pay a production company to be on ESPN Plus. ESPN may open that end up for them, but you still got to pay for the production rights of that. And they don't get a direct check from ESPN, much like we see with the SWAC or the MEAC, in terms of having a contract that allows them to put multiple football games on, a couple of basketball games on. Obviously, in addition, they put the championship events on for all sports. We see that included in this, but it talks about the preliminary rounds, which is different. Oftentimes, you don't see that contractually right, other than what you see with FBS schools, programs at the conference level. So that's something to think about. The Big Sky just had a deal where they talked about the fact that they essentially are moving to ESPN Plus side. They'll have some games on it. To me, in many ways, this is more significant than what we've seen with the Big Sky deal. Obviously, we don't know, or at least I don't know what the numbers are for Big Sky. As I found out, you're talking about $1 million multi-year. So I don't know if that's $1 million multi-year or if that's $1 million over the whole life of the contract. Either way, that is significant money in terms of that. But with that being said, when you hear that type of number, Charles, what are your thoughts in terms of the fact that this is not just a leveraging deal where you're going on ESPN and providing the exclusionary right without getting financial compensation? And if this is, as I'm hearing correct, $1 million+, how does that maybe resonate differently with you when you hear about this deal?
Well, I mean, if you're a fan of a conference, it should excite you to understand that sort of money is being infused into the conference. And then I think you touched on it at the beginning with regards to the platform that is ESPN. It is become synonymous with what we know as sort of the mecca of sports. So, it sort of, not only do you get the pride burst of being with on the ESPN networks, but you also get an infusion of money into the conference. So as a fan, it should sort of excite you.
The other thing that you think about, it says 22 football games across ESPNU and ESPN Plus. Remember that the Division II games in turn is a shorter season. They start a little later than the FCS and FBS, and they tend to end earlier because the playoffs start early. So you're essentially talking about over a 10, 11, 12-week period. You're talking about almost 2 games a weekend. That's pretty significant too.
And Doc, we've kind of talked about the newfound riches of being able to sit home and watch multiple HBCU games where we've talked about having, you know, 2 iPads up, a computer up, and something on TV. So you kind of get excited about the fact that there's this groundswell of interest in HBCU athletics, and now we have an opportunity to sit back and kind of watch it, because television is a part of this daily thing now that as we watch more HBCU athletics.
Great points, great points. So let's get into this conversation, because you said exclusionary rights. Some people may ask, what does that mean? Essentially, when you talk about exclusionary rights, because there are about, you know, a minimum 4 or 5 ways that you can break up rights fees for broadcast. And that is kind of extended. You need to understand traditionally when we talk about rights, when radio came on the scene, the first thing that you talked about were radio rights. And then obviously when television came on the scene, you had this television broadcast rights. Well, now you have this new phenomenon, not so new anymore, but it's becoming more robust, is the streaming rights. Some people will even talk about content creation rights in terms of what that looks like. So even for this show, we'd have the ability as the owners of the show to sell these rights to the show. So when you do that, you can sell over exclusionary rights. That means you give away all your rights. You tie them up. So if you do that, you need to make sure you get the bang for the value. And so it's interesting to try to measure what that value looks like. Because if a production company, a television company, a broadcast company is going to ask for exclusionary rights, it means they want everything. So you as the institution or the brand hopefully understands that means that you are locking away everything. So when we talk about locking away everything, let's be careful with that. What does the SIAC own in terms of the rights that they can negotiate traditionally with institutions? When we think about sporting events, you have what? Your non-conference game, right? You have your conference regular season games. You have your conference postseason games. And then you have either bowl or NCAA tournament, or in some cases, bowl games, which are outside of the NCAA, but they sanction those games. So those are the things that you first have to look at. You know, when you come out with the schedule, you're looking at, particularly as a fan, what are my home games? Home games often can consist of conference games, also non-conference games, right? And so you can put those on the schedule. You can sell a ticket package around your home games, non-conference and conference games. A lot of times we get in to talk about that. You know, what type of conference schedule do I have? And you look at it. What are the conference games we got at home? What are non-conference games? So you get excited about what that looks like. Well, traditionally, when we tend to look at this in terms of the conference owns just that, the conference games. Everything that the conference is responsible for organizing under their umbrella. So as if you're an institution and you join a conference, one of the things that you give away in joining the conference is your conference games that the conference games gets up. Those ownership rights go automatically to the conference. The conference can give them back for whatever reason, whether the conference membership decides that, and or if the conference decides that we don't have the ability to negotiate and sell this out, they can give it back and let the conference member institutions have that framework. So again, think about that when you're talking about the conference rights and things that's going on. Who owns those rights? So again, the conference owns the conference rights. Well, what else does the conference own? The conference puts together postseason, right? The conference tournament. So who do you imagine owns the rights to the conference tournament, Strong?
The conference.
Exactly. So anything the conference puts together, they actually own those rights. So they can go sell those rights as the conference. Obviously, the presidents and the members, it can be SIDs, or the senior women administrators, ADs, VP of athletics. They're generally the ones who do this. And they will go make a recommendation to the presidents, and the presidents have to ratify it. But essentially, the conference commissioner has the rights to negotiate deals about those games. Once they do that, you have that. They can sell them over as exclusionary rights, meaning they can sell over all that material. And then but non-conference games are games that the school puts on, especially their home games, and they own those rights. The conference doesn't have those rights. Now, they can sell all those rights back. To give you an example of this, the SEC, they had their first rights, right? First rights, which we'll get into that, because you can have first rights, secondary rights, and even tertiary rights in terms of broadcast, what we're looking at now, because you can have some other media rights that you want to sell too. You can also have radio rights, or you can bundle these. You can put these together. You know, you talk about these bundle packages that you all and myself get when we talk about cable, telephone pole, they try to bundle. You can do that as a conference league. Say, hey, conference membership, let me have these rights. I can bundle. We can go get a bound of money because we bundle up. The more things that we have, broadcast networks love that, right? They're looking for content. The more content you can put on the table, supposedly, the more money you can get for that content. So that's what you think about. But individually, you have that. So going back to that scenario, the SEC, right, didn't sell over exclusionary rights, or at least not right away. What they did is they had their first rights. They sold those first rights in the previous contract before ESPN got into bidding rights, and now they own all of this. But the first rights went to what? CBS. What did they negotiate in that contract? In that contract, they negotiated CBS, give us this money, and what we'll do is we'll allow you to pick the game of the week that you want. And you can put it on. CBS said, yes, we love that. We want to have our game on essentially about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we want to pick our first game of the week. They picked it. The SEC said, great. They had all this inventory, right? They only picked one game. They had all this inventory. So from that, they took the secondary rights and said, all right, anybody else wants a little bit of the SEC? ESPN said, oh, yeah, we love that. We got multiple networks. We want a lot of that. We want multiple games. So we're going to buy your secondary rights, but we're going to buy secondary rights for 2 or 3 games. We're going to put a game on ESPN. We're going to put a game on ESPN2. And if it's big enough, we might even throw it on ABC. Night game. That's secondary rights. So now SEC has sold their first rights, their primary rights, some people call it, and then the secondary rights. They wasn't finished. They still had more rights. They had what they call tertiary rights. So the conference said, well, whatever we don't give away, each member, you can have your own rights back. We'll give you your tertiary rights. So that's when you had in some of these regional networks that would show games, show Florida games that didn't come on CBS or ESPN. What is it? What are some of those old networks? I can't think of them now. Raycom Sports.
Raycom Sports is one that comes to mind.
Some of your regional, they would buy over those tertiary rights. Some of them would go to an institution and say, we want everything that you can give us that doesn't go to CBS or ESPN. Well, the interest got so big for the SEC, and I hate talking about this much SEC, but this is the easiest way to see it because people see this so much. ESPN got all their rights back from their schools and say, hey, man, we hear this inkling that ESPN wants more content. They would set up a SEC dedicated network. So they bought all the rights back from the institution. There were some deals on the table for Raycom. They went to Raycom and say, how much the school owe you? How much you paying? Well, we're going to give you that money back plus some because we want our rights back. Because we finna go get this explosionary deal. They went back and took everybody's tertiary rights. The conference bought all those rights back and said, hey, don't worry about it. You think you got some money with that Raycom? That's nothing what we're going to get from ESPN to create this ESPN SEC network. Now we've seen that play out with Big Ten doing one. You see that Longhorns went on and were so big, bad, or at least they thought they were. They were able to do it themselves with the Longhorn network. They're having problems with distribution. That's a different conversation. ACC has one, Pac-12. Pac-12 commissioner got fired by the way he lined this up because they still trying to figure out where the money is. That's a whole different conversation, but just giving you out there. So those are some things that you really need to consider when you're reading and trying to understand exclusionary deals, first rights, primary rights, secondary rights, tertiary rights. We haven't even got into your radio rights, your other broadcasting rights, because you can bundle those and sell those as well in terms of that. Some companies have actually had big business where they were going to school asking for their rights, paying them a fee, and then they would go sell them to another company or sponsors and then find a way to make their money back. So there's multiple ways to do this. Fascinating. Any thoughts you have out there? Any questions that people have asked out there that we need to answer?
Actually, I do. I have a pretty good question here, and let me read it to you. Dr. Cavil, can we both agree that HBCU athletics has a different framework than the Power Fives of the SEC? So the question is, can too much television be a bad thing? Our HBCU market has classics and has season tickets to sell. What is the advantage of television?
Oh man, that's a very important question, and let me break it down in parts. And I really appreciate that question because we need to understand that. The first thing is there's no doubt that there is a unique culture associated with HBCU. See this book back here? I actually wrote on it, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You're absolutely right. I've said it at the introduction of the show every time. HBCU sports culture is for a reason. Start using that phrase so people can understand even more what that means. I've defined it, written it down in such a way that people have to actually quote me when they use it, at least in a written format. That's not for y'all. Y'all can use it all day. I give it away free. Please put it out there in the atmosphere and let people know that it's a real thing. With that being said, though, it is important to understand that the money is in television. There is a reason why the SEC has grown so big. The Big Ten have grown so big. It started in the 70s. At one time, if you look at the history, and I won't take too much time on this, but it is important foundationally to give you this framework. Television wasn't much of anything. You remember the legal case with Georgia and Oklahoma suing the NCAA so they could have their own independent rights. At that time, the NCAA had all the rights and they would distribute to some degree. Some people would say fair. I would say it wasn't even fair then, but they would at least distribute the game across all these different platforms so different teams would come on. The combination between Oklahoma and Georgia winning that contract, ESPN creating its own network, and the other networks getting in on the business, athletics exploded professionally and collegiately. It exploded. And so much of that was because of television. We don't realize we pay a significant package for our television subscription, right? And the more things you get, the higher your bill. Well, one of the rationalizations they use for having those bills is they pay out big contracts to these conferences. That's how they have all this money to build. It's not just because of donors. They have some big donors and they have a lot of people at the game. But really, that's what has separated historically white colleges and historically black colleges. Besides what I defined the other day in terms of proximity to whiteness, is the fact that they have these television deals. These television deals pay significant money. That's the separate component of really that has stratified in a lot of ways the difference between what I refer to as historically white colleges, i.e. SEC, ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, Big 12 in a lot of ways, and even to some degree, the other FBS conferences. Check this out. As the last time I was able to get this research information, being at the FCS conference, television contracts start out at $5 million. They start out at $5 million. We're talking about a multi-year deal for a Division II conference getting $1 million. They start out at $5 million. That's for the conferences like the Sun Belt that we don't think making any money. Think about if the SWAC was getting $5 million, what they could deliver back to each of the now, or starting July 1st, 12-member institutions. What could your athletic office do if they were getting essentially $500,000 for just being a member of the conference? So no, I would suggest to you, if you market this correctly and you put it on television, what should happen is you should actually see an influx in attendance, because now people see it on television and see it as the thing in place to be. You are correct, though. There are some things culturally that we need to consider and look at in terms of what time you may put the game on television. Could be important. Now, the concerns you have with that is because you're trying to get in this business in some ways, you do have to be careful that there is a pecking order in terms of the brand recognition that can dictate when your television game can be on television, or what time it can be on television, I should say. And we tend to have some conferences that like to play, or member institutions that like to play around noon. We have some conference members that love night games. And so that could even be within the conference, can be culturally differences and relevant at what time. I noticed for Alabama State, they like to play late, particularly basketball. They like to play 8 o'clock Eastern time, when most other schools like to play at 7. I've seen some schools now starting to push their games up to 2 and 5 on Saturdays. What does that look like? Hopefully they're doing the research, and what they found out that for their fan base, it makes sense to play the games at this time to maximize the attendance factor. The last thing I will say on this, if you're really looking at this, before we take this quick break and then we'll come back to close out the show, is you do need to have studies that really analyze to say, what is the tipping point? What are you making from your home crowd? So you should not negotiate a television deal that will pay you less than whatever you think you're going to lose, if you're going to lose something, especially at first putting on television. So what does that mean? Let's look at the delta. Let's say on average, we'll keep this simple, that you're selling at home games at 10,000 seats, right? And just for a safety factor, we'll say that you're making $500,000 on your home game, right? Per game. So let's say that because you put on television, again, we're going to keep this math simple. So we're going to say you're decreasing it by half to 5,000. That's pretty ridiculous, but we'll just say it because it's easy to do the math, right? That means instead of making your $500,000, you're making now $250,000. That means at a minimum to break even, the television contract that you should sign to put that game on television needs to be worth what? $250,000. If it's less than that, it makes no sense. You're losing money. If it's more than that, it makes a lot of sense because you're making a net profit. It's simple. It's revenue, right? Profit minus your expenditures minus your profit tells me whether you're going to make profit or you're going to lose, right? Revenue minus expenditures, let me say it one more time, is going to determine whether you plus or minus, meaning you have a profit or a loss. Profit means you're a good business person. Loss means you need to go back to school.
Well, Doc, I'll say this. You're getting kudos in this regards. The text I just got, I hope somebody's president is watching this because you're an AD in training. I don't understand why you're not an athletic director. My athletic director cannot explain it this way. So.
No problem. I really appreciate that. I work with the athletic directors, vice president, particularly shout out to Kevin Granger, vice president of athletics at Texas Southern University. He's allowed me immense support in terms of working with them. And hopefully if things play out right, I have the traveling framework. I'm on both sides of the aisle. So at one point I probably kind of have to figure it out and decide. Academic side, I am interim associate dean of academic affairs. So that's a lot of good things that I get to do with developing curriculum. As I said before, we can announce officially that we've become the first HBCU that offers a doctorate in terms of a concentration in sports. We do it in sports education. It is a doctorate in curriculum instruction, EVD, in that department. Charles is actually in that program in terms of that, and we have a concentration in sports education. So I enjoy developing curriculum and teaching this in the class. But I get to work with the athletic department and actually get to work alongside as almost a special assistant, if you would, to Kevin Granger. So I get to learn so much, but I also get to provide a lot of that academic information in there. So it's work for me. But yes, who's to say? I am open to opportunities. So we'll see. Not necessary to put a plug out there, but just saying. With that, let's take a quick break so we can close out on the show, the last 5, and I'll let Charles come back and give some of his final thoughts, and then we'll see what the other lab individuals out there and see what they have to say. So stick with us. This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We extended it a little bit, but I thought it was important to get that information in there. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to close things out after this break. Stick with us.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Aver's record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
Because the fight isn't over yet.
You will see me choose to protect my community by wearing a face cover.
And even with my face covered,
you will see me.
As a son.
As a man with a never quit attitude.
As a fighter for change.
Join me in wearing a face cover.
To help stop the spread of the coronavirus.
Because this is one small act of kindness
that has the power to make a big difference.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. I hope that you're enjoying the show and getting this information that we're able to break down there. Shout out to BJ Jones, Dwayne Lewis. They've allowed me to team up with them on so many different things and provide these opportunities out there. So I want to give them a special shout out. You'll see BJ Jones coming back and jumping off with us pretty soon. We have another special announcement. We'll wait to the critical masses. We'll bring that on. I'm sure you'll all be excited about who's joining the BCSN family from a sporting context. And so thankfully to Roy. Roy made this happen in so many different ways. So shout out to Roy. He's doing big things. Go to my JBN, my BCSN. Go check out what's doing. We have a studio now in terms of Atlanta. So if you're in that area and you want to do production from a studio, he can make that happen. If you want to do production from your home, as you see what we're doing, he can make that happen. So the brother is talented. And if you want to get in this sphere, he can help make that happen. And I can attest that it's one of the best decisions we've made. We still have the benefit of simulcasting with Ralph Cooper in terms of KCH 1230. So we love that opportunity. So we're going to find ways to continue to push that out there. And I think you had a question that may give us another angle that we need to consider as well.
Yeah, and a question here, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but basically the text is saying, I'm not a fan of ESPN or Fox. I feel like they water down my HBCU product and they have commentators who aren't versed in HBCU knowledge. Why doesn't our HBCU conferences just have produce the content themselves? Why can't we just create an app and sell the subscription to our HBCU fan base?
Man, that's a powerful question. The first thing is in my opinion, and this is not to knock the ADs or vice presidents. I think they work diligently and they may see things a little differently. I think one of the things for what this particular question is asking, you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit to kind of have that mindset. That's a lot of foresight in thinking about that. And I would say that it is. In a lot of ways, that's where the industry is going. We see that with ESPN. ESPN Plus is essentially just an app where they stream the program. So that's what they're doing. But the other part of it, it takes some investment in there. Usually, as you know, as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest things that you're getting hurt on is getting the investment dollars. That's one of the reasons I'm telling you about Roy. He's invested a lot into his business to get it to where it is now, and to take it to the next level, you're going to need some seed money. So as alumni, if we want to support that idea, and I think in a lot of ways it's a great idea, that's where our booster groups, if you would, our alumni organizations consider about funding the costs associated with developing an app to help leverage what the athletic director, vice president of athletics can do. So that, to me, in a lot of ways needs to be a partnership. I know one thing about partnering with the athletic departments. We think there's a lot of funds in that, but they're stretched. Our HBCUs, when we have lost literally $500 million, that's just recorded over the last 30-some years. That doesn't just take place in terms of the academic side. That hurts across the board, including athletics. The funding in there is not where it needs to be. And so in a lot of ways, they're penny pinching. So they're trying to figure it out. Do I think there should be some better avenues of understanding how do we invest and let something grow? I certainly believe that, but I think that's where our booster groups and our alumni organizations really need to consider about supporting that and helping the athletic department leverage the funds so that we can do that. The last thing I will say about the app business is also the fact that it's easier to go get the money up front from a funding organization such as ESPN. But I think to augment what you're saying is also the understanding the value. I think one of the things that has concerned the HBCU fans is talking about really understanding how do you negotiate a deal so you get the value. You could do some things where you don't necessarily give exclusionary rights away, where you could do a special thing such a way, since traditional television really doesn't have the ability to do halftime or do halftime the way we like it, you could put halftime on the app. So if you understand that, you do this. One last thing I want to say about that, it's important you understand why your major networks such as Fox and ABC don't necessarily show at least the halftime. I'm not talking about the pregame, because you have some points there. There's some culture associated with the pregame and postgame, but particularly with the bands. Remember, our bands play not only their own music they develop, but they also play traditional music out there. Well, on a television station, even here, when we put our stuff on YouTube, we get a bing if we play, and you notice this on Facebook, they'll stop you on a dime with your DJs. If they don't say the certain words or whatever, they can't just play secular music, because you've heard all these artists talking about how they getting ripped off. Well, now they figured out a way to do that. They will charge ESPN millions of dollars for copyright infringement if they allow the band to play a secular song that the band has not created. So that's one of the reasons that you don't necessarily see the band playing all the cultural accoutrements associated, as I like to say, the HBCU athletic aesthetics associated with it. So you need to know how do you create other avenues to get that out there. And that's where the app could take place during post-game, halftime, and post-game. I should say pre-game, halftime, and post-game in there.
I've always asked this question: can a band create enough improvisation within whatever that pop culture song is that they're playing that they can say that it's
very difficult to do that, because you can only play a couple of minutes. And Roy would tell you about this, being in the radio and broadcast business. It's only so much time, and usually it's like 30 seconds a minute, no more than 2 minutes before the people come in, if you would, to saying, hey, we need our money. So that's one thing that you must consider. And that's why I want to say thanks to everybody, because we're out of time. But I really appreciate getting this opportunity to take this deeper dive so we can really get into the business side of this. We say this on our show. One thing we do that's unique, we're going to introduce you not just in terms of the culture, but also in terms of the aesthetics, but the business side of it. So you'll really get an understanding what that looks like and what's going on, and why it's so important to understand why certain decisions are being made. Sometimes, yes, they are bad decisions. Sometimes they're actually good decisions, and sometimes they're flatly out of their control. But we need to know, how do we take the next business step in doing it? So thank you for listening to Inside HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure to share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports. coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Watson and Charles Bishop. We hope you enjoyed the dialogue that we got to go back and forth with the labs that we put on the table. We're getting ready. We're going to push it off and give you a lot of content. Again, check out my JBN, my BCSN. Download the app. We're talking about getting those apps. Download that app, and you can help push things forward so we can go back and show the HBCUs that there is money in the apps. If we can't show this, it's going to be hard to get them to understand that that is a process. So download it, show, and let's talk it into existence of what we want to achieve. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKemyattacavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on YouTube. Facebook, we're at Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, as you know, on YouTube as well. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Roy?
Course.
I'm sorry, course.
Lecture.
Dismiss.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.